Hey guys, welcome to episode 207 of Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and I'm excited today to share with you the top 10 benefits of podcasting. I've personally been podcasting and doing this show since November of 2019. Previous to that, I was a podcast producer for a friend's show, and I was also listening to podcasts a lot when I was in sales, going from, client to client or meeting to meeting, coffee shop to coffee shop. I really was diving into podcasts early on. And they've been out even at that point for a decade, but they weren't as popular as they are today, and they continue to grow. And so I wanted to take kind of an episode to pause and remember some of the benefits of doing this. And if you're wondering like, hey, I think I might want to start my own show, why would I put all this time and energy into it? Or what benefits can I get out of being a podcaster myself? What are some of the things that come with it if I'm going to put that time and energy into it? So number one thing I'll tell you, this is my top 10 list right here. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put that up on the screen. If you're listening in, I'm going to cover the 10 first, and then we'll go in each one. And then don't run after that, because I do have an exciting Social Chameleon update for anybody who is interested in either doing it yourself for podcasting or done for you services. We cover both of those. And now today I'm announcing something new. I teased it a little bit in a few episodes and also in a couple emails. So you may already know it's coming, but I haven't made the full announcement. So today we're going to do that as well. Here's my top 10 list. So number one is serving, right? So I'm going to go through this real quick and then we'll come back to it. But number one is serving. Number two, make an impact. 3, grow a strong network. 4 is learning and your personal growth. Number 5, brand exposure. 6, abundance of social media content. Number 7, engaged community. 8, informed audience. Number 9, monetize. A lot of people want to put that number 1. Number 9, I put monetize. Number 10, I put have fun. Doesn't mean it's the last on the list. I just wanted to remind everybody, if you're doing this and you're not having fun, then you're doing something wrong, or you shouldn't be doing it. And that's okay. Podcasting is not for everybody. There's certainly a lot of cases for it. There's a lot of great uses for it. It's amazing what it can do for your brand and your marketing and your social media content and your personal brand. But it doesn't mean that, if you feel forced to do it to kind of keep up with the Joneses, then that's absolutely the last reason you want to do this. So make sure you're having fun. All right, so we're going to go back to the top of the list. Number 1, serving. The reason that I started back, like I said, in 2019, was I felt this heart tug personally. I felt I had this moment. I was kind of reinventing myself. I was going through a little bit of a transition in business from what I originally was doing with Social Chameleon and kind of leaning more into podcasting. And I also felt that there was this heart tug for me to be a host and interview other guests to share their story and then inspire you, the audience, to be brave and bold in pursuit of your dreams. And also to give you the tips and tricks and different things that many of these amazing people, we're talking athletes, entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, authors, many diverse industries, they're sharing what they did to get to where they're at today. And they're still learning and growing and growing, right? So nobody on the show has ever said like, oh, I'm arrived, right? Or I have arrived and I'm at the top of peak on the mountain of my success. It's like, no, I've had gold medalists on the show and they're still like, hey, he's not, I'm talking about Kerry Mullen. He was an Olympian, holds the record for fastest downhill skiing record. I think 97, 98 miles per hour, something crazy like that. And he was on the show, one of my early guests. And after he was an Olympian and a gold medalist and everything like that, he became an entrepreneur. Now he has Vivo Resorts as one example, right? So now he's doing, hospitality. Just a lot of cool stories like that where you see someone level up and then they go to the next level and they continue to grow, adapt. I've done it myself. I'm still early on in my journey. I'm in about year 5 of business as an entrepreneur, and the podcast is a few years in now, 200 plus episodes. One thing I am proud of is the consistency. I've put an episode out every week since I started. So 207 weeks ago. But so number 1, serving, really, it comes from the heart. If you feel that there's people out there that you want to serve, an audience, a community, a group of people in your niche, your particular thing that you're really excited about, then this is a great benefit. It's a great reason to start your show. And then that's tied into number 2. If you remember, I said make an impact. Well, you will make an impact when you're connecting with the right people. You're doing the right things from your heart, and you're getting people bought into what you're talking about and what you're doing, and they're excited, and now they want to get involved. And if it's something, whether it's a fundraiser or more attention on a positive movement that you started or someone else started that you're bringing great attention to, you can really make an impact with your podcast. And I've seen it personally. I've seen it on shows that I've produced through Social Chameleon. I was a guest on many shows where they're making an impact and what they're doing. And if you just look around, you'll see it all over the place. So number 2, make an impact. I think that's a really big one. 3 is you can grow a strong network. No doubt. I mentioned I have 200 episodes. Probably 7 of those 207 are solo episodes. So I don't do this often. I like to do this every once in a while, but it's not something I'm doing all that often. I'm planning on doing it more now because I feel like it's important for me to get some messaging out from me. When I interview my guests, I get out of the way, as you guys know, if you've been listening to the show for a while. I really interview them, pick their brain, dive deep into their heart, into their soul, and interview that way. And I try to get out of the way and maybe guide the conversation or add insights when I feel necessary. But really, you don't get too much from me on the show because it's all about the guest. So doing these solo episodes are important to do that. But what I'm talking about here is growing a strong network. I have over 200 people I met from the show. And a lot of them are friends. A lot of them I've hung out with outside of the show or outside of business. And we just get together, we talk, have people who call me on the phone if they are going through some stuff in their life. People have, a lot of my guests have kids, and I get to see like their Christmas cards. And, I write Christmas cards to friends that I've made through the show. But also other networking opportunities. Like I've had speaking opportunities, or I've had people ask me to be on their show after I interviewed them on my show. And that networking opportunity continues to grow. You never know where it's going to go. You're not doing it for that reason, like, oh, I'm hoping that I can rub the right elbows. But those opportunities do come from podcasting. So know that if you're early on in your journey, whether it's in business or entrepreneur or sales or whatever you're looking to do, get this messaging out for your show. Realize that in doing this, and if you have guests on your show and you can invite people on and people in your community, you're going to continue to grow a strong network. And then number 4, learning and personal growth. I'll tell you, I've probably learned more like doing this show than I have, I guarantee it, in college and then in, school previous to college, like 13 years of school, right? And then another 4, whatever it might look like for you. Man, I'm telling you, I've learned so much from my guests. I love to read books and learn that way too. But the idea of like hearing someone's story and having them share really what's personally happened to them, and then them share either how they got through it, how they got out of it, or just different topics and things that you might not expect to come from the conversation. That's the most exciting for me, is like when we have a topic or kind of a skeleton or outline for the conversation, and then all of a sudden we're halfway through it and somebody's just giving me all this new things that I'm downloading into my brain and into my soul. And it's like, man, I didn't know we were going to get there today. And I learned so much, and personal growth and gratitude. You hear me say, be great and be grateful. I learned a lot about gratitude on the show. A lot of the people who are doing extremely well and thriving in life, gratitude is a principle within their daily practice. And so that's not just something I came up with or thought we want to talk about it a lot on the show. It is very practical, and people are using it and utilizing it's actually a better word for it. So I've learned a lot, and I've grown a lot in the last 3 years because of Mic'd Up and through podcasting, both as a host and also as a guest. And then, of course, brand exposure. So I run the Social Chameleon ad during the guest interviews. The longer episodes, you'll see the Social Chameleon audio and video ad. And obviously, more people get to hear from me through my newsletters, my emails, and you get to understand what I do. Because when I produce an episode, it's through Social Chameleon. So we have that brand exposure. People ask me about it. I get interview opportunities as the founder, CEO, whatever title you'd like to give me, president. I'm really the executive producer and founder of Social Chameleon. And so people ask me about that. That's brand exposure, and that's come through podcasting. Number 6, abundance of social media content. I cannot tell you how true that is. When you have a podcast, whether it's a long form like 30-minute or 60-minute guest interview or solo content, you'll have so much to work with that you can cut down into micro content. So you'll be able to turn it into quote graphics, cover art, that's going to be mentioning that show. Now you'll also have a reel with a cover that you can put on it. You can cut 3, 5, 6, 10 reels out of a 1-hour episode. So you're not going to run out of content. That should not be the number one reason you do this. Like, oh my God, my social media content's really really dipping right now. So I need to let me launch a podcast. So I have a bunch of stuff to talk about. Like, again, go back and look at what I just said, the benefits all the way up to number 6 for the right reasons to do this and the right benefits from podcasting. But abundance of social media content definitely comes with it. So be excited about that. And I'll say this too. In the beginning, in the early days, like I'm not as proud now to share some of that early stuff because I was learning, I was growing, and your expertise will grow over time. And that's whether you're doing it or someone else is doing this for you. If you hire someone or a team like Social Chameleon, they're going to continue to grow and get better over and over and over time. So your content is going to continue to grow and get better as you go. So don't hold off and try to figure it all out and make sure it's perfect and think that you have it all figured out before you start. You're going to continue to grow over time. But yeah, abundance of social media content is definitely a great benefit of podcasting. And number 7 is a huge one too. Engage community. So when you're podcasting too, you can get a lot of great feedback. Whether it's when I do my email blast, I get a lot of people like reply to that email blast, and they're just like, "I'm really excited for this episode," or "I listened to this one, and XYZ is what I took out of it, and thank you so much for this content." Instagram DMs, I get a lot of those. Usually when I post a reel, and then I'll share it as a story, and people see it as the story, they'll click through it, and then they'll reply to that either in the story or in the reel, and they'll tell me what they really liked about it. So it's an engaged community that I haven't really gotten with some of my other content. The podcast tends to be where people are enjoying the content the most and also engaging with it the most. And you'll find like there's going to be a platform that pops a little bit more for you than the others, and you want to live there a little bit more, spend more time there engaging with your audience. We talked about number 9, monetizing. So there's many different ways you can do that. You can do that through affiliates, like if you have a lot of views. Obviously, if you talk about a product or service and you get an affiliate, if there's a link in your show notes and someone clicks on it and purchases a product, boom, right there you can make a little bit of dough. That's one way. Usually you'll need a little bit of a bigger audience for that to be substantial enough for you to be like, oh, I made 5 cents on the dollar here, but I've done it X amount of times over, so it was worth it. So that is one way. A bigger way is sponsorships. And you may say like, hey, I'm just starting out. I don't have a huge following. So the sponsors I'm going to or the companies I'm going to are shunning me away right now, or they're saying, yeah, check back in 6 months and different things like that. True. You want to remember though, you're not going to be talking about any product or service. You want to make sure it's something you use on a regular basis, you believe in. You would sell it to your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your neighbor, your best friend. If it's something you feel that confident about and you actually do use, then that sponsor is going to come across so natural and you'll be the perfect person for them. And if that brand and that company knows that you're genuine about it, that'll mean more to them. And also, as you grow your show, you can have it be a small amount. Like you're not going to say, hey, I want $1,000 per episode when you're getting started. But over time, as your show grows, you can maybe work that into the deal, whereas you get more viewers, they make a little bit more. It could be a percentage play, or you can come out of the gate saying we're looking for X, and that's what we're really sticking to. I have a situation where a friend of mine got a substantial amount for a sponsor on his show. This was back 3-4 years ago now, and he had about 25,000 downloads, which is not bad at all. It put him in the top, I want to say at that time, top 3, top 1.5% most downloaded shows at that point. Again, 3-4 years ago. He was able to get like a $40,000 annual sponsorship. And he was, at that point, it's maybe, a couple 300 views or downloads per episode. Not bad. But that's a pretty good chunk of change. The reason that it worked out, though, it was definitely somebody he knew, had a relationship with. It was a company that he was familiar with, and they were familiar with him. So is it going to be something where, you just cold call and get a substantial amount of money? Typically not. So my point in telling you that is utilize your network. There's people who love you, believe in you. They know that you started your business. They believe in your mission there, and they may want you to sponsor their product or service on your podcast. Even if they know you're just getting started, they're going to be like, man, we're going to get in now with this person, because in 2 years, we may not be able to get with them because they're going to be way bigger than we might be able to even, we're going to have to pay more for it, right? So don't be afraid. What's the worst that someone could tell you? No. I mean, you don't have it now. So I would recommend reaching out to your network. And again, not everybody. Make sure it makes sense. If you're reaching out and you're randomly like, I'm going to do, some toothpaste brand that I don't even use, could you do that? Sure. Do people do that? Absolutely. But to me, when it actually connects back to you is when it's going to be the most beneficial for both you, and obviously the sponsor is going to stick around. And they'll get more action because people know when you're full of it. Like if you're full of BS and you're reading an ad and you're bored and you don't care about it, opposed to you actually use it and you care about your audience and you want them to have it, comes across way differently. So monetizing, obviously there's the ROI story there. And there's so many different ways you can do that. There's also paywalls. If you guys are not familiar with that, what it means is you can release your regular content for free, as I have been doing now for about 3 years. But if I choose to do any exclusive episodes, maybe an interview with like an extra bonus 15 minutes where we talk about something extra special, and we say, for that you pay $1, or for that you pay $2, or whatever it might be. There's a lot of shows that I know and also follow that have paywalls where they have great content throughout the year, and then they have different events or different parts of their episodes that they like to put behind the paywall. It makes sense. It's a little bit more, if it's educational, it might even be more like, hey, instead of us doing courses, we're doing the paywall on our podcast. We're going to cover that material over there. All the free stuff is there. If you want more actionable items, that stuff's behind the paywall. Number 10, if you remember what that was fun. If you're doing this, like I said earlier, you're not having fun doing it, I would just reevaluate why you're doing it. Are you trying to keep up with other people, or is there, did someone in your marketing department come to you and say you need to be doing a podcast? It's the absolute last reason you should be doing it. So those are my top 10. Again, serving, make an impact, grow strong networks, learning and personal growth, brand exposure, an abundance of social media content, an engaged community, an informed audience, so now they can make buying decisions, monetize it, and have some fun. That's my top 10. Let me know your top 10. If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, appreciate you doing that. Leave us a review. If you haven't left me a review yet and you've been listening to the show for a while, I know I don't always ask for that, and it's something that I take these moments, these more personal moments, and say, hey, if you really do enjoy the show and you haven't done that, it might take you 30 seconds on Apple, and it does help the show. It'll help me rank a little bit higher the more reviews that I get. So if you genuinely enjoy the show and you haven't done that, do it. Help me out. I mean, it's really simple, and it's a huge gesture that takes about 30 seconds. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this, remember that you can subscribe to the channel so you get notified, and turn your notifications on, obviously. New episodes, new content, any new videos I'm putting out, you'll see those as well. And also, I do have some shorts, and I call those mic'd up moments, YouTube shorts that you'll see. If you're on Instagram, you'll see some of the promo content for this episode. And then remember that, like I said, let me know your top 10 benefits, or if there's one that's not on my list, that's on your list, shoot me a DM or write me a comment on social media. I'm on Instagram the most. I'm also on LinkedIn, a little bit on TikTok, and like I said, YouTube. And I'm on Facebook too. Everybody's on Facebook, more so for family. But I do have the podcast. I have a page set up for Mic'd Up with Mike DiCioccio on Facebook. So let me know your top 10 or any of the ones that maybe I didn't cover. And I'd love to hear that and love to get some engagement on it. All right, here's the news. Here's the Social Chameleon news. Mentioned it a little bit in my email newsletter, and I teased it in a couple other episodes. But here's what's going on. We have new e-courses. I'm in the process of creating these. In the show notes, there's going to be a link. If you're interested in the e-courses, starting and launching your own podcast, and you need help and you want to take e-courses to get there, to build your podcast out, you're thinking, hey, I want to do this myself. I don't necessarily need one-on-one coaching, but I'd like to go through the courses. The whole idea with Social Chameleon was to build a community, and something that I feel like I've done over the last few years with my team. And I want to give a shout out to Anne-Marie, Todd, and also Randall on my team. The four of us have been working really hard on the production side of things and the guest sourcing side of things. And we're great at that. The thing is, we work with, up to a dozen podcasts at a time. And so when we do that, we're kind of limited. Our community is a very tight knit. It's our clients up to, like I said, 12 we can handle right now at a time. So it's very tight knit, right? A show might end up, only doing 50 episodes. So we end up having room for a new show. And that's kind of what happens. Like someone will be between season 2 and season 3. So now for 6 months, we can launch a new show, and then season 3 comes back, or season 4, and we continue to grow, and I'll add team members as we continue to grow the company. But it's such a tight knit community. Like I said, a couple dozen. I've had over the last handful of years, dozens of clients, but and I'm grateful for all of them. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is I want to help the masses. And the way to do that is through e-courses. So what are some of the topics and courses that we're going to cover? Well, here's what I did. I went to my team. Like I said, I went to Anne-Marie, I went to Randall, and I went to Todd. And I said, what are some courses that we can all work on together to give it to the Mic'd Up and the Social Chameleon audience? And here it is. So these are my topics. So number 1 is the power of podcasting. So the top 10 benefits I just talked about here. But rather than that just being a course like you got in the podcast here, it's going to be more of an outline and details under each category. So I kind of gave you the 10,000-foot view. There would be a course on that that's going to be more giving you greater detail to each of those. And then also the 4 major roadblocks that podcasters face. We'll go through that because there's going to be these roadblocks that you run into. We want to help you push through it. There's going to be a guide to becoming a rock star host and also a rock star guest. There's a lot of value in being on both sides of that interview. Utilizing AI for your podcast, which is something we do as a company, and also you'll be doing, especially if you're launching your show now, you're going to be implementing AI into it to some degree. And there's going to be more than that, obviously. Those are kind of the first handful. Anne-Marie has some great topics too. How to build an efficient pitching and guest management workflow. Then 5 things to look for in show research before you pitch. Why you should pitch yourself to newer and smaller podcasts. Also, a framework of a perfect podcast pitch email. The recipe for a juicy media sheet. Also, how to enjoy podcast guesting as an introvert. A lot of great topics right there. Todd had some great ideas as well, like how engaging social media can grow your show. The 5 technical tips for improving your podcast, crafting captivating podcast show notes, super important. A lot of people overlook their show notes. The vital importance of good SEO, and then how to monetize your podcast. All great topics right there. And then the last 4 we have are identifying your audience and tailoring content to meet their needs. So think about it like finding your ideal audience, tailoring your podcast to be attractive and useful to that audience. Number 2 from Randall is podcast distribution demystified. So what are RSS feeds? File hosting, Apple, Spotify. How do I get on there, right? And then practical tips to improve your recording space, which is great. So where you're recording, what does it look like, sound like? How can you improve that? And just some everyday practical tips. And the last one I think is huge, consistency without burnout. So tips on pre-planning, bulk and block recording, and fallback episodes and scheduling. Everything right there is everything you're going to need to know to launch and have a successful podcast. And not just launch, but continue to launch and grow your show. Those right there are like 20 amazing courses that we're going to be building out. But here's the thing. We're building them out for you. So in the podcast show notes, you're going to see that I have a link in there to fill out the contact information. If you're interested in the courses, again, it's not going to cost you anything to fill that out, get information on it. It's going to be free to start, but then we're also going to have the paid program, obviously, where you're going to have access to all of those courses or some of those courses, depending on what you're looking for. And then the idea is for us to build a community. It's going to be more of a membership. And when you're a member into that community, you're going to have access to all these really cool tips, tricks, courses, everything you need to get started and successfully launch your podcast. So with that, I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio. Been doing this for over 3 years. I love you guys. Appreciate you tuning in. I always like to end every episode with BGBG. As you guys know, it means be great and be grateful. And I'm grateful for you. Again, if you haven't reviewed the show on Apple, if you do that, I really appreciate it. I see every one. It's the best thing whenever I just check in on that and I see that there's a new review from somebody, especially someone I don't know. Always feels great. And then, if you're on social media, shoot me a comment. Let me know what your top benefits are of podcasting, or if there's one that you think we left off the list, or I left off the list, I should say. And then on YouTube, if you're hanging out over there, make sure you subscribe to the show and turn your notifications on. All that good stuff. Like, subscribe, follow the show. Thank you so much. Share this episode with anyone that you know who's interested in starting a podcast, because these benefits are going to get the wheels spinning in their head. Once those wheels are turning, they want more information. That's where the courses come in. And as I mentioned also, aside from the courses, we have done-for-you podcast services. Go to socialchameleon.us. That's in the show notes as well. And if you don't want it done for you, you just want to learn how to do it, I have do-it-yourself courses. We talked about that, but also do-it-yourself one-on-one coaching with me. There's people who really like the feedback in the moment. They want to learn how to do it. Ask me a question. We work on it together. We have multiple sessions. You can do that too. So either do it yourself with me, done for you, or learn how to do it in the e-courses. Those are the 3 great ways that you can kick off and launch your podcast going into Q4 here and into the new year. Don't wait for January 1st. Start working on your podcast now. If you want to launch it in 2024, now's the time to get started. Thank you guys so much. Cheers.